The London Underground, a labyrinth of steel and echoes, was packed with the usual after-work crowd. Olivia, a young office worker dressed in a crisp white blouse and black skirt, squeezed herself into the tube train, clutching her bag tightly to her chest. The train jolted into motion, the rush of air from the closing doors pushing the scent of sweat and metal into the dense space. The cacophony of voices and the rhythmic clank of the train filled her ears as she searched for a place to stand comfortably. As the train hurtled through the tunnels, Olivia felt a persistent pressure against her backside. She shuffled uncomfortably, hoping it was just the jostle of the packed carriage. But as the pressure grew firmer, she realized with horror that it was the hand of a man groping her without consent. She stiffened, her breath catching in her throat, as his fingertips explored her curves through the fabric of her skirt. The realization brought a torrent of emotions, fear, anger, and a burning sense of violation. But she was trapped, surrounded by a wall of indifferent faces, all lost in their own worlds, oblivious to her plight. The train rattled on, a silent accomplice to her torment. Her eyes darted around the carriage, searching for help, but all she saw were the averted gazes of fellow passengers, unwilling to acknowledge the unwelcome intimacy unfolding before them. The man took her silence as an invitation, his hand growing bolder, sliding further up her thigh. Olivia's heart raced, her mind screaming for a solution. The train jerked again, and she felt his fingers brush against her underwear. That was the breaking point. She couldn't bear it anymore. She spun around, her face flushed with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she snapped, her voice piercing the low murmur of the train. The man, taken aback by her sudden confrontation, stumbled back a step. "Sorry, miss. I must have lost my balance," he said, feigning innocence with a smarmy smile. He was a few years older than her, wearing a cheap suit that was too tight around his midsection. His eyes held a glint of malice that made her skin crawl. "Don't you dare touch me," she warned, her voice shaking with a mix of fear and anger. The train lurched again, and she felt a hand clamp down on her wrist. "Why are you making such a fuss?" he whispered, his breath hot against her neck. "It's just a little fun, isn't it?" Olivia's eyes widened in terror. She tried to pull away, but his grip was like a vice. The train was too crowded for her to move, and the passengers around them remained a sea of uncaring faces. "Get the fuck off me," she spat, her voice louder now, desperate for someone to intervene. The man's smile grew more predatory, and he leaned in closer. "You're so pretty when you're upset," he murmured, his other hand reaching for her chest. Panic surged through her. She knew she had to do something. In a burst of strength fueled by desperation, she brought her knee up into his crotch with all her might. He let out a guttural yelp, releasing her wrist, and crumpled to the floor. The passengers around them gasped, finally looking up from their phones. "Someone call the police!" she screamed, her voice echoing off the metal walls. The man lay writhing in pain, clutching his groin. A few people took out their phones, but no one made a move to help her. The train pulled into the next station, and Olivia shoved her way through the crowd, fleeing the scene. She stumbled onto the platform, gasping for air. As the doors slammed shut behind her, she watched the train pull away, carrying her attacker and the indifferent witnesses with it. Her legs trembled as she tried to compose herself, the reality of what had just happened crashing down on her. The woman in a pink sweater standing nearby looked at her with a mix of pity and concern. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice tentative. Olivia nodded, unable to speak. The woman took a step closer. "That was brave of you," she murmured, her eyes flicking to the retreating train. Olivia felt a wave of gratitude wash over her, but it was quickly replaced by a searing anger. "Why didn't anyone else do anything?" she demanded, her voice cracking. "Why did they just stand there?" The woman looked at her sadly. "They're afraid," she said softly. "Afraid of getting involved. afraid of what might happen, but you stood up for yourself. You're strong. The words did little to ease the rage and betrayal that coursed through Olivia's veins. She felt like she was in a nightmare, unable to escape the feeling of his hands on her body. Strong? She spat. I just wanted to go home. The woman reached out a hand, but Olivia shrugged it off. I know, sweetheart, she said gently. But you can't let these bastards win. You fought back. And that's what matters. Olivia took a deep, shaky breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She looked down at her trembling hands and felt a tear roll down her cheek. I just want to get out of here, she whispered. The woman nodded and offered her arm. Come on, I'll walk with you. Together, they made their way to the stairs, the woman keeping a protective eye on her. As they ascended into the cool evening air, Olivia felt the weight of the incident pressing down on her. She knew she would have to report it, to go through the humiliation of recounting her story to the police, to deal with the aftermath of what had happened. But for now, she just needed to get home. As they stepped out of the station, the cool evening air provided a stark contrast to the stifling tension of the train. The woman in pink, whose name she had not yet learned, walked with her in a comforting silence. The city lights flickered in the distance, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the dark tunnel of the evening. Thank you, Olivia finally managed to say, her voice a mere whisper. The woman squeezed her arm. You're welcome. I'm Rachel. What's your name? Olivia, she replied, feeling a little less alone. Rachel's presence was a comforting shield against the horrors of the world she had just experienced. Do you live far? Rachel asked, her voice filled with genuine concern. No, just a few blocks away, Olivia said, her voice still shaking. Would you like me to walk with you? Rachel offered, and Olivia nodded gratefully. They walked side by side, their steps echoing on the empty sidewalk. The city around them felt eerily quiet, as if it too was holding its breath in the wake of her trauma. As they approached Olivia's building, Rachel spoke up, her voice firm and gentle. You know, you shouldn't have to go through this alone. I'm here for you. If you ever need to talk or just need someone to be with you, don't hesitate to call. Olivia felt a lump form in her throat. Thank you, Rachel. I'll keep that in mind. They exchanged a warm smile, and Rachel handed her a crumpled tissue. Wipe those tears. You're stronger than he'll ever be, she said before turning and walking back towards the station. Olivia watched her go, feeling a mix of admiration and anger. She didn't know Rachel, but in that brief moment of solidarity, she'd found a kindred spirit. A surge of determination filled her. She would not let this define her. She would not let fear dictate her life. With shaking hands, she unlocked her door and stepped into the sanctuary of her apartment. She took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline slowly leave her body. The silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the cacophony of the train. She made her way to the bathroom, peeling off her clothes and throwing them into the hamper as if they were tainted by the man's touch. The hot water of the shower stung her skin, a physical reminder of the pain she felt inside. She scrubbed herself until her skin was raw, trying to erase the memory of his hands on her body. As the water cascaded down her back, she felt the first sob escape her lips. Her mind raced with questions and recriminations. Why hadn't she screamed louder? Why had she been so paralyzed with fear? But then Rachel's words echoed in her mind. She had fought back. The water grew cold, but she didn't care. She stood under the stream, letting the tears mingle with the droplets. Eventually, the sobs subsided, and she stepped out, wrapping herself in a warm towel. Olivia knew the night ahead would be long and filled with nightmares. But she also knew that she had faced her fear and stood her ground. And with Rachel's kindness as a beacon, she vowed to never be a victim again. She would fight, she would heal, and she would find justice. With newfound resolve, she picked up her phone and dialed 999, her voice steady as she reported the assault. She had taken the first step in reclaiming her power, and she would not stop until she had reclaimed it all. The call to the emergency services was a blur of words and emotion. Olivia recounted the incident in a voice that was surprisingly calm, given the turmoil inside her. The operator offered sympathy and assured her that a police unit would be dispatched immediately. She ended the call, feeling a strange sense of detachment from her own voice. Wrapped in a robe, she sat on the edge of her bed, waiting. Her thoughts swirled like a tornado, mixing anger, fear, and a stubborn resolve to not let this break her. The sound of sirens grew louder in the distance, a distant echo of the chaos within her mind. When the police arrived, she recounted the story again, this time with trembling hands and a quaver in her voice. The officers were kind and professional, but their presence in her personal space was a stark reminder of the violation she had endured. They took down details, offered reassurances, and collected her soiled clothes as evidence. The following days were a whirlwind of interviews, paperwork, and the dreaded trip to the hospital for an examination. The support from Rachel, who had insisted on staying in touch, was a lifeline through the storm. They spoke often, sharing their fears and frustrations, and Rachel's words of encouragement helped Olivia to face each new challenge with a little more strength. The detective assigned to her case was a no-nonsense woman named Sam. She had seen it all before, and her eyes held a quiet empathy that made Olivia feel a little less alone. They sat in the small, sterile room, and Sam listened as Olivia recounted the assault for what felt like the 100th time. "We're going to do everything we can to catch this guy," Sam assured her. "But it's important to be prepared. These cases can be tough to prove without witnesses." Olivia nodded, her throat tight with unshed tears. "I know," she whispered. "But I can't let him get away with it." Sam squeezed her hand. "You're not letting him get away with it. You're fighting back, and that's what counts." The investigation dragged on, a slow march through the legal system that seemed designed to wear down the already fragile. Olivia's work suffered, and she found herself avoiding the tube, taking taxis or walking to avoid the fear that clung to her like a second skin. Rachel was always there, though, a constant presence offering a shoulder to lean on and a voice of understanding. Weeks turned into months, and the case grew colder. The CCTV footage had not captured the man's face, and no one had come forward with information. Olivia's anger grew, festering like an open wound that refused to heal. Rachel suggested they take self-defense classes together, a way to channel their anger and fear into something positive. In the dojo, Olivia found a new kind of strength. The punches and kicks she threw against the pads were not just for self-protection. They were a declaration of war against the predators who prowled the shadows. Rachel was a fierce partner, her own anger a mirror of Olivia's. They pushed each other, supported each other, and grew stronger together. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Rachel turned to her, sweat dripping from her brow. "You know, I've never told you this, but I've been there too," she said, her voice low and intense. "Years ago, I was assaulted. It took me a long time to recover, but I did. And now, I'm fighting back every day." Olivia felt a bond with Rachel that was unbreakable. They had both faced the same monster and survived. They were warriors now, armed with knowledge and a fierce determination to never be victims again.